Nia was a 29-year-old single mother, juggling the endless demands of work, parenting, and survival in a busy city. Every day felt like a marathon, and yet she kept pushing forward for the sake of her 6-year-old daughter, Maya. Nia worked 2 part-time jobs, rushing between shifts while trying to make ends meet. Even though she barely had time for herself, Maya's smile was the one thing that made all the struggle worth it. One rainy afternoon, life threw another curveball her way. A $200 parking ticket landed on her windshield, a sum that might seem insignificant to some, but was an enormous blow to Nia's already fragile budget. The violation had occurred on a day when Maya had fallen sick, and Nia had parked in a restricted spot to quickly grab her daughter's medicine. It wasn't negligence, it was desperation. When the letter from the court arrived, Nia was faced with a difficult decision: pay the fine, which she couldn't afford, or show up in court to plead her case. After much hesitation, she chose the latter. She knew the odds were slim, but her sense of justice pushed her to at least try. As Nia prepared for her court appearance, she felt the weight of anxiety pressing on her. To make things harder, Maya would have to accompany her, as there was no one else to look after her. On the morning of the hearing, she dressed Maya in her favorite pink dress and packed a small bag with crayons and snacks to keep her occupied. The courthouse was bustling when they arrived. Nia's heart raced as she stepped into the courtroom, clutching Maya's tiny hand. At the center of the room sat Judge Callisto, a stern figure known for his strict, no-nonsense rulings. The moment was overwhelming, but Nia tried to steel herself. She couldn't afford to falter now. Little did she know this day would be unlike any other, not just for her, but for everyone in that courtroom. Maya, her bright and innocent little girl, was about to do something that would stop the proceedings in their tracks and change the course of the day entirely. As the courtroom proceedings began, Nia clutched the paperwork she had prepared to explain her situation. Maya sat beside her, quietly coloring in her small notebook. The atmosphere was tense, with lawyers presenting their cases, and the judge responding with curt nods or sharp words. Nia's nerves grew with each passing minute as her turn drew closer. Finally, her name was called. Taking a deep breath, Nia rose, holding Maya's hand as they approached the stand. Judge Callisto glanced at her briefly, his sharp eyes scanning her as if trying to gauge her character in a single look. "Miss Nia Johnson," he began, his tone firm, "you've been charged with illegal parking in a restricted zone. Do you admit to this violation?" Nia nodded timidly. "Yes, Your Honor, I do, but if I may explain." The judge cut her off with a raised hand. "You'll have your chance to speak. Let's hear the details first." As the officer presented the facts of the case, Nia felt a lump in her throat. The story sounded so cold and detached, just another infraction in a long list. The real reason behind her decision to park there seemed invisible in the sterile language of the report. When the judge finally turned his attention back to Nia, his expression remained unreadable. "What do you have to say for yourself, Miss Johnson?" Nia took a deep breath and began. She spoke of Maya's illness that day, the urgent need to get medicine, and the impossibility of finding another parking spot in time. Her voice trembled, but she pressed on, explaining how paying the fine would mean sacrificing necessities like groceries or rent. The judge listened in silence, his expression unchanged. When Nia finished, he leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled. "While I understand your circumstances," he said slowly, "the law exists for a reason. Compassion is important, but so is order. The fine." Before he could finish, a small voice interrupted him. "Mr. Judge?" The courtroom fell silent as everyone turned to look at Maya, who was standing on her tiptoes to peek over the edge of the podium. Her big brown eyes shone with a mix of innocence and determination. Judge Callisto blinked, clearly startled. "Yes, young lady, what is it?" "I just wanted to say," Maya paused, clutching her stuffed rabbit tightly. "My mommy is a good person. She takes care of me even when it's hard. She only parked there because I was sick. Please don't make her sad." The room was utterly still. Lawyers, spectators, and even the court clerk seemed frozen, their eyes fixed on the little girl. Nia's face burned with embarrassment, but there was also a flicker of pride. She hadn't expected Maya to speak, but her daughter's words carried a truth that no argument could match. Judge Callisto studied Maya for a moment, his stern demeanor softening ever so slightly. "That's very brave of you to speak up," he said, his voice gentler now. "But the law doesn't always allow for exceptions, even when someone means well. Maya's eyes filled with tears. But isn't it your job to make things fair? She asked, her voice trembling. The simplicity of her question cut through the room like a blade. Judge Callisto leaned forward, resting his elbows on the bench. For the first time, he seemed genuinely thoughtful, as if the child's words had reached a part of him he rarely showed. Fairness, he murmured, almost to himself. It's not always as simple as we'd like it to be. What happened next would leave everyone in the courtroom questioning not just the law, but the humanity behind it. The courtroom remained silent, the weight of Maya's question lingering in the air. Judge Callisto adjusted his glasses, glancing from Maya to Nia and then to the papers in front of him. His usual sharpness seemed to falter as he contemplated his response. Maya, he began, his voice measured, what your mother did was against the law. And as a judge, my responsibility is to uphold the law. But fairness, as you've pointed out, is something we can't ignore either. Nia stood frozen, clutching Maya's hand. Her heart pounded, unsure of what the judge's next words would bring. Would he reduce the fine? Dismiss the case? Or would the coldness of the system prevail, leaving her with an insurmountable burden? The judge finally turned to Nia. Miss Johnson, while your actions were understandable, they still resulted in a violation. However, given the circumstances you've described, I believe this is a moment where discretion is appropriate. A collective murmur swept through the room. Judge Callisto raised a hand to silence it before continuing. I am waiving the fine, he declared firmly. Instead, I am assigning you 10 hours of community service, which I believe will benefit both you and our community. It's not a punishment, but rather an opportunity to give back in a way that aligns with the challenges you face. Nia's mouth fell open. She blinked, hardly daring to believe what she'd just heard. Tears welled up in her eyes as she stammered. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you so much. Maya, not fully understanding the implications, tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mommy, does that mean you're not in trouble anymore? Nia knelt down, hugging Maya tightly. That's right, sweetheart, she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. We're going to be okay. But the moment wasn't over yet. Judge Callisto tapped his gavel lightly, signaling he had more to say. Before you leave, I want to acknowledge something. His gaze softened as it fell on Maya. Young lady, your courage today reminded me of the importance of compassion in this courtroom. It's easy to forget the human side of these cases when we're so focused on rules and procedures. Maya tilted her head, her brow furrowed. So you're saying it's okay to be nice sometimes? The judge smiled faintly, a rare sight that seemed to surprise even the courtroom staff. Yes, Maya. Sometimes being nice is exactly what's needed. As Nia and Maya walked out of the courtroom, the air felt lighter, as if the weight of the world had shifted ever so slightly. Nia couldn't help but feel that, in a small but significant way, justice had been served not just for her, but for everyone watching. It was a moment that reminded the room, from the lawyers to the clerks, that the law may be rigid, but humanity always has the power to bend it toward kindness. The weight of the day's events settled into Nia's shoulders as she and Maya left the courthouse. Outside, the sun was shining, the air crisp and clear, almost as if the world itself had taken a breath of relief. But as they walked toward their car, Nia's mind was still racing. The courtroom had given her a second chance, but the reality of her situation hadn't fully sunk in yet. The community service wasn't the end of the struggle, it was just a new chapter. Mama, Maya's small voice broke through Nia's thoughts. What happens now? What do we do next? Nia smiled softly, though her heart felt heavy. We take it one step at a time, sweetie. One day at a time. Things are hard, but we're going to be okay. You've been my strength today. Maya beamed up at her mother. I'm glad I helped. You did more than help, Nia whispered, squeezing her daughter's hand. You reminded me what matters most. We have each other, and that's everything. That evening, as they sat down for dinner, Nia's phone buzzed with a notification. It was a text from her sister, Tasha. Nia, I heard about what happened today. I'm proud of you. If you need anything, I'm here. Nia's fingers hovered over the screen for a moment before she typed back. Thanks, Tasha. It means more than you know. I'm just trying to figure it all out, but I'll be okay. I think I'm ready for a new start. The words felt liberating as they left her fingertips. For so long she had been carrying the burden of guilt and fear, but today she had glimpsed something different, a possibility. Later that night, as Maya drifted off to sleep, Nia found herself staring out the window, her mind quiet for the first time in weeks. She thought about her future, about the choices she'd made, and the lessons she had learned. The legal battle was far from over, but the judge's decision had cracked open a door she hadn't even realized was there. Maybe this community service wouldn't just be an obligation. Maybe it would be a chance to make something positive of her life. To rebuild not just her finances, but her sense of self-worth. Maybe it would allow her to connect with people who could help her find a way forward. The next morning, Nia took a deep breath and walked into the community center where she had been assigned her service hours. The director, an older woman with kind eyes named Mrs. Alvarez, greeted her warmly. "Nia, I've heard about your case. But here we don't look at what you've done wrong. We look at what you can do right now, and how you can help others," Mrs. Alvarez said. "I'm glad you're here." Nia nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm ready to help." And so began the next phase of Nia's journey, one that was defined not by the mistakes of her past, but by the choices she made moving forward. Little did she know, this seemingly small step would be the catalyst for a transformation not just within her, but within the community that had been watching from the sidelines. The same people who had once judged her would soon come to see her in a new light. As Nia took on more responsibilities at the center, she began to see the impact she could make. The elderly residents who needed help with errands, the children in the after-school program who were eager for guidance, each person she helped brought a sense of fulfillment that no legal victory could match. She was building something far more valuable than she had ever imagined, a reputation for kindness, a community that respected her, and, perhaps most importantly, a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time in a long while, Nia allowed herself to dream again. She thought about going back to school, about opening her own small business, or maybe just becoming more involved in the community. The world was full of possibilities, and though it would be a long road, Nia knew that with Maya by her side, anything was possible. And in that moment, as she glanced down at her daughter, Nia finally understood that her journey had never been about avoiding the mistakes of the past. It had always been about embracing the future, one step at a time. Weeks passed, and Nia's life began to shift in ways she hadn't expected. The small moments of progress at the community center slowly added up, and for the first time in years, she felt like she was on the right track. Her bond with Maya grew stronger, and each day, Nia found herself gaining more confidence. She had a renewed sense of purpose, a drive to keep moving forward, no matter how difficult the journey. One afternoon, as Nia was organizing donation boxes for the center's upcoming charity event, Mrs. Alvarez approached her with a serious expression. "Nia, I'd been thinking," she began, her voice gentle yet firm. "You've been doing an incredible job here. You've got a heart for helping people, and I can see that you're serious about turning your life around." Nia paused, unsure of what to expect next. She wiped her hands on her apron and looked at Mrs. Alvarez. "I want to offer you something," Mrs. Alvarez continued. "We're looking for someone to help coordinate the volunteer programs here. I think you'd be perfect for it." Nia blinked in surprise. You want me to manage the volunteers?" she asked, her voice filled with doubt. "Yes," Mrs. Alvarez said, smiling warmly. "You have the experience, and you understand the importance of giving back. I believe you can make a real difference here." Nia's heart raced as she considered the opportunity. It was a big step, one that would require responsibility, time, and commitment. But it was also an opportunity to prove to herself that she could rebuild her life. "I'd be honored," Nia replied, her voice steady but filled with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me." From that moment, Nia threw herself into the role. She worked closely with the other volunteers, helping to organize food drives, tutoring programs, and community outreach efforts. As the months passed, her impact became clear. She was respected, not just by those she helped, but by her peers too. They saw her dedication and the care she put into every task, and they began to trust her judgment. But it wasn't just about work. Nia found herself starting to repair the relationships that had been broken in her life. One Saturday, her sister Tasha visited the community center, a rare gesture given their strained relationship in the past. She watched Nia interact with the children, organize the elderly volunteers, and laugh with the other workers. Tasha was quiet as she observed her sister, her eyes softening with each passing minute. After the event wrapped up, Tasha finally approached Nia. "You've changed," she said. her voice full of quiet admiration. "I've had to," Nia replied with a sigh. "I'm not proud of everything I've done, but I'm trying to make things right." Tasha smiled, wrapping her arms around Nia. "You are making things right. I see it now." It was a turning point in their relationship, and Nia felt the weight of the past lifting just a little bit more. As the months passed, Nia's life took on a rhythm she never thought possible. Her financial situation improved as she took on more hours at the center and even began to earn a small stipend for her work. She was able to find a part-time job at a local bakery, where her boss, a woman named Jessica, was incredibly understanding and supportive of her efforts to balance work and her community service hours. Jessica even offered to help her apply for a small business loan when Nia mentioned her dream of opening a cafe in the future. One evening, as Nia and Maya were sitting on their couch after dinner, Maya turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "Mama," she said softly, "are we really okay now?" Nia smiled, brushing a lock of Maya's hair from her face. "We are, sweetheart. We really are. It might not be perfect, but we're doing the best we can, and that's enough." And for the first time in a long while, Nia believed it. She knew that the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. There would still be obstacles, setbacks, and challenges. But she also knew that she had the strength to face them, and most importantly, she had a purpose. The community service had turned out to be more than just a court-mandated task. It had become a foundation for Nia's redemption, a stepping stone to building the life she had always wanted, but never thought possible. And with Maya by her side, Nia felt ready for whatever came next. Her journey wasn't over, but she had found the courage to keep going, to keep learning, and to keep growing one step at a time. As time passed, Nia's life was finally beginning to feel stable. But deep inside, there were still parts of her past she hadn't fully confronted. She had worked hard to rebuild, to show others and herself that she had changed. Yet, some nights, the shadow of her past mistakes crept in, lingering in her thoughts, pulling at her heart. One evening, as Nia was preparing dinner, she received an unexpected phone call. The number was unfamiliar, but something in her gut told her it was important. She answered with a cautious hello. "Nia, it's Marcus," the voice on the other end said. Her heart skipped a beat. Marcus was a name from her past, someone she hadn't spoken to in years. He had been a part of her life during some of her darkest moments, and she had cut ties with him when she decided to turn things around. "Marcus, what do you want?" Nia's voice wavered, though she tried to sound firm. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Marcus replied, his voice softer than she remembered. "I heard about the work you're doing at the center, and I wanted to tell you that I'm proud of you." Nia's chest tightened. She wasn't sure if she was ready to hear from him, let alone accept his words. "I don't need your approval, Marcus," she said, her voice growing steadier. "I've moved on from all of that. I've worked hard to get to where I am." "I know you have," Marcus replied, "but I wanted you to know that I've changed too. I'm not that person anymore, and I just wanted to apologize for everything. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I had to say it." Nia sat down slowly, her mind racing. This was the last thing she had expected, an apology from someone who had been part of her broken past. She could feel the weight of his words hanging in the air, and for the first time, she allowed herself to breathe through the hurt. "I don't know what to say," she finally admitted. "You hurt me, Marcus. You were part of the reason I lost myself for so long." "I know," he said quietly, "and I regret it. Every single day." For a long moment there was silence between them. Nia closed her eyes, trying to process everything that had just been said. She had built a new life, a new identity, but the scars from her past still lingered. Could she truly move forward without confronting this piece of her history? Finally she spoke. "I don't think I'll ever forget what you did. But I'm learning to forgive for myself. I'm not that person anymore, either. And I don't think there's anything left between us, Marcus." "I understand," Marcus said. "I just needed you to know that I'm sorry. I hope you can find peace." "I'm trying," Nia replied. "I'm trying every day." They said their goodbyes, and Nia hung up the phone, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. She had faced a part of her past that had been weighing heavily on her heart, and in doing so, she realized something important: she didn't need anyone's approval or apology to continue her journey. Her redemption was hers to claim, and she was no longer bound by the mistakes she had made in the past. Later that week, she sat down with Maya, who had been sensing the change in her mother's mood. "Mama, what's wrong?" Maya asked, her voice filled with concern. "I talked to someone from my past," Nia said, her voice soft. "Someone who hurt me, but also someone who is trying to change, just like I am." Maya nodded, though she didn't fully understand. "Does that mean everything's okay now?" Nia smiled gently, brushing Maya's hair away from her face. "It means I'm learning to be okay with who I am, even with all the mistakes I've made. I can't change the past, but I can change how I move forward." That night, Nia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had faced the past that had haunted her, and found a new strength in doing so. It didn't erase the pain, but it allowed her to heal. The next day, she walked into the community center with a renewed sense of purpose. She was no longer running from her past, but using it as fuel to help others who were in the same place she once had been. She knew now that her true redemption came not from the apologies of others, but from her own ability to forgive, to heal, and to keep moving forward. Her past would always be a part of her story, but it no longer defined her. She had the power to write the next chapter. As the weeks passed, Nia found herself feeling more at peace with her life. She had learned to let go of the weight of her past, and her relationship with Maya grew stronger with each passing day. They spent more time together, enjoying simple things like cooking dinner and having long talks about their dreams for the future. For the first time in years, Nia could feel the warmth of hope growing inside her. One sunny afternoon, Nia was sitting on the porch of her small home, sipping a cup of tea, when she received a call from an unexpected number. It was from a woman named Jessica, who had recently come across the work Nia was doing with the community center. "Nia, I've been hearing a lot about your work," Jessica said, her voice warm and inviting. "I'm part of an organization that focuses on mentoring at-risk youth, and we've been looking for someone who could help us. Your experience and your journey would be such an inspiration to the young people we work with." Nia's heart skipped a beat. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for, an opportunity to not only share her story, but to help others who were just starting their own journeys of healing and growth. "Jessica, I don't know what to say," Nia replied, her voice shaking with emotion. "This is what I've been dreaming of. I've wanted to do more, but I never thought it would actually happen." "I believe in you, Nia," Jessica said. "We all need someone to believe in us when we don't believe in ourselves. And from everything I've heard, you're the person who can make a real difference." Nia smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude. "I'd be honored to help. When can we meet?" "We're hosting a meeting next week to discuss some of our programs. I'd love for you to come and speak with us." The next week, Nia stood before a group of passionate individuals, all committed to making a difference in the lives of young people. As she shared her story, she felt the weight of her past transform into a source of strength. Every word she spoke was a testament to her resilience, her commitment to change, and her desire to help others break free from their struggles. By the end of the meeting, Jessica was visibly impressed. "Nia, you're exactly what we've been looking for. We want to work with you. We believe you can inspire these kids in ways we never could." For the first time in a long while, Nia felt like she was truly walking in her purpose. She had found her calling not just as someone who had overcome adversity, but as someone who could guide others through their own struggles. That evening, Nia and Maya sat down for dinner, their laughter filling the room as they talked about the future. Maya had grown into a confident, strong young woman, and seeing her thrive made Nia feel proud of the choices she had made. Together they had built a life filled with love, hope, and the promise of new beginnings. "Mama, I'm really proud of you," Maya said, her voice full of admiration. "You've come so far. I'm lucky to have you as my mom." Nia smiled, her heart swelling with love. "I'm proud of you too, sweetie. You make me want to keep going, to keep being better every day." As the night drew to a close, Nia reflected on how far she had come. She had once been lost in the darkness of her past, but now she was standing in the light of a new future. Her journey wasn't over, but for the first time, she felt confident that she was exactly where she was meant to be. In the days that followed, Nia threw herself into her work with the mentoring program, dedicating herself to helping the next generation of young people find their own paths to healing and success. She listened to their stories, offering them the same guidance and support she had once longed for. Through it all, Nia realized that her purpose wasn't just about overcoming her past, it was about helping others rise above theirs. She had been given a second chance, and now, it was her turn to pay it forward. Her life had come full circle. Nia had learned the true meaning of redemption not as something that could be given by others, but as something that had to be earned, fought for, and shared. And in doing so, she had discovered that the power of transformation was not just in the ability to change, but in the ability to help others change, too. With her past behind her and a bright future ahead, Nia knew that she was ready to face whatever came next, as long as she had the strength to keep moving forward, one step at a time. Months passed, and Nia's life continued to transform. Her work with the mentoring program brought her deep fulfillment, but she soon realized that her influence was spreading beyond just the youth she mentored. Her community had begun to notice the positive change in her, and many people started seeking her out for advice and guidance. What had once been a small, private transformation was now a ripple effect of hope and inspiration that touched everyone around her. One evening, after a particularly successful community event, Nia sat with Maya on the porch of their home, watching the sunset. Maya, who had grown into a confident young woman, had started to pursue her own passions, encouraged by her mother's resilience. "Mama, I was talking to some of my friends at school today," Maya said thoughtfully, her eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and admiration. "They wanted to know how you did it, how you turned everything around, after everything you went through." Nia smiled gently, taking Maya's hand in hers. "I didn't do it alone, sweetie. None of this would have been possible without the people who helped me along the way." Maya nodded. "You mean like the people from the program?" "Exactly," Nia said. "But more than that. It's about the community. When you open up and allow people to help you, to support you, you find strength in places you never knew existed." It was in moments like these that Nia realized how powerful community truly was. The simple act of opening herself up, of allowing others into her world, had led to a cascade of support that had carried her to heights she never thought possible. She had learned that healing wasn't just about self-reliance, it was about connection. When people came together, shared their stories, and supported one another, the weight of their struggles became lighter. Inspired by this realization, Nia decided to expand her efforts. She began organizing regular community gatherings, where people could come together, share their experiences, and offer mutual support. These events became a safe space for many who felt isolated, providing them with a sense of belonging and understanding. At one of these gatherings, Nia met Sarah, a woman in her early 40s who had recently experienced a personal crisis. Sarah had lost her job and was struggling to care for her 2 young children. She felt hopeless, trapped in a cycle of failure that she couldn't break. "I don't know what to do anymore," Sarah said, her voice trembling as she shared her story with Nia. "It feels like everything I try just falls apart. I'm trying to keep it together for my kids, but I'm running out of strength." Nia listened intently, her heart aching for Sarah. She knew that feeling all too well. "I understand," Nia replied softly. "I've been there. But the thing I've learned is that you don't have to do it alone. It's okay to lean on others. And sometimes it's about finding small steps that can lead to bigger changes." Sarah looked up at Nia, her eyes filled with a mixture of skepticism and hope. "But what if it doesn't work? What if nothing changes?" Nia smiled gently. "You'll never know unless you try. But you have to be kind to yourself through it. Change isn't always easy, but it's possible. And sometimes it starts with just one person believing in you." From that moment, Nia became a mentor to Sarah, offering her the same guidance and encouragement that had once been given to her. Over the next few months, Sarah began to make small but significant changes in her life. She enrolled in job training programs, started attending support groups, and began to rebuild her self-confidence. Slowly but surely, Sarah found the strength to rise above her struggles. It wasn't just Sarah who had transformed, it was Nia as well. Through helping others, she had found a deeper purpose. Every time she saw someone take that first step toward change, it reinforced her own belief that transformation was possible. She had become not just a mentor, but a bridge between people who were struggling and the hope that lay just beyond their reach. Nia's impact on the community continued to grow. People began reaching out to her for advice, not just about overcoming personal challenges, but about creating positive change in their own lives. Her small gatherings became regular events, where people shared their victories and their defeats, offering each other a space to heal and grow together. The local newspaper even caught wind of Nia's work, and soon, She was being interviewed about her efforts to empower and uplift those around her. Her story of overcoming adversity and finding purpose in helping others became an inspiration to many in the area. Through it all, Nia remained grounded. She knew that her journey wasn't over. There would always be more challenges ahead. But she also knew that the power of community was a force stronger than any obstacle. She had found a family in her neighbors, her mentees, and the people she had helped. Together they had built something greater than themselves, a network of support, hope, and healing that could withstand anything life threw their way. As Nia looked out at the community she had helped create, she realized that her story wasn't just hers anymore. It was the story of everyone who had been touched by her work, everyone who had found hope in the darkness, and everyone who had learned to believe in the power of connection. And in that moment, Nia felt the deep, unshakable truth that no matter how difficult life had been, she had finally found the place where she truly belonged. Nia's life had transformed in ways she could never have imagined. The work she had started with the youth mentoring program had now blossomed into a full-fledged community movement. Her impact had rippled through the lives of so many people, and she had become the cornerstone of hope for many who had once felt lost. Yet, despite all the progress and growth, Nia knew that her journey was far from complete. The true test was not just about overcoming obstacles, but maintaining her newfound sense of peace and purpose as the challenges of life continued to unfold. One late evening, after another successful community gathering, Nia sat alone in her living room, reflecting on how far she had come. The walls of her home, which had once felt empty and heavy with the weight of her struggles, now echoed with the laughter and warmth of family and friends. It wasn't just the physical transformation of her life that struck her, it was the emotional and spiritual shift she had undergone. She reached for the old journal that she had kept when everything had seemed hopeless. The pages were filled with tears, doubts, and fears, but also with moments of courage, hope, and the quiet desire for change. Reading through her own words, Nia felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had come from a place of darkness, yet here she was, standing in the light. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Maya standing there, holding a small, wrapped package. "Mama," Maya said softly, her eyes bright with excitement. "I've been thinking a lot about you lately. I wanted to give you something." Nia took the package, puzzled. "What is it?" "Just open it," Maya urged, her smile wide. Nia carefully unwrapped the gift to reveal a framed photograph. It was a picture of her, Maya, and the community they had built together, faces full of joy, hope, and promise. The image was a reminder of everything they had worked for and the people whose lives had been touched by their journey. "Mom," Maya continued, "this picture is special. It's not just a snapshot, it's everything you've done. All the lives you've changed. And I think it's time we put it somewhere everyone can see it. Not just here at home, but out there where people can be inspired by it too." Tears welled in Nia's eyes as she looked at the photograph. The realization hit her like a wave. This wasn't just about her anymore. This wasn't just about overcoming her past and finding her place in the world. It was about the collective strength of everyone who had been a part of her story. It was about the community, the bond they shared, and the power of collective healing. "Thank you, Maya," Nia whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "This means more to me than you'll ever know." The next morning, Nia decided to take a bold step. She knew that the work she had started in her community was not something that could stay contained within the walls of her small town. It needed to spread. The message of hope, healing, and empowerment needed to reach beyond the local area. It needed to go nationwide. With that resolve, Nia reached out to the local leaders she had worked with over the years and proposed the idea of expanding their mentoring program. She suggested using technology and social media to reach people across the country, especially those who might not have access to the resources she had worked so hard to build. She pitched the idea of virtual mentoring sessions, online community gatherings, and workshops that could be broadcast to people in every corner of the United States. Her proposal was met with enthusiasm, and within months, Nia found herself speaking at conferences, leading virtual seminars, and connecting with people from different states who were eager to join her cause. Nia's story became a beacon of inspiration, showing people from all walks of life that no matter how difficult the circumstances, change was possible with support, perseverance, and a belief in oneself. In the midst of her newfound success, Nia's relationship with Maya deepened. The once uncertain young woman who had relied on her mother's strength now stood beside her as an equal, proud of the woman her mother had become and eager to contribute to the mission herself. Maya, inspired by the work they had done together, began her own journey of leadership, offering her unique perspective and talents to the cause. As Nia stood before a crowd at a national conference, sharing her journey with hundreds of people, she realized that she had come full circle. The girl who had once felt isolated, trapped, and hopeless was now standing tall in front of a room full of people who were looking to her for guidance. The pain she had once carried no longer defined her. Instead, it was the wisdom, strength, and love that had blossomed in the aftermath of her struggles that now served as her foundation. "Change isn't easy," Nia said to the audience, her voice steady and full of conviction. "But it is always possible. The key is believing in yourself and surrounding yourself with the right people. When you do that, anything is possible." As she left the stage, the applause echoing behind her, Nia knew that her journey wasn't just about personal growth anymore. It was about creating a movement where people regardless of their circumstances could rise up, support one another, and create a future full of possibilities. In that moment, Nia realized that this was only the beginning. The seeds of change had been planted, and now they were beginning to grow in ways she could have never predicted. She was no longer the woman she had been, trapped in the shadows of her past. She was a leader, a mentor, a mother, and a catalyst for change. And her journey of transformation was far from over. Years passed, but Nia's work continued to flourish, and her legacy grew beyond what she had ever imagined. Her community, once small and struggling, had become a vibrant hub of transformation, a model for other cities and towns around the country. What started as a simple mentorship program had evolved into a national network of support, hope, and empowerment, touching lives across the nation. Nia's role had changed. She had become a symbol, not just for what was possible, but for what could be built when people worked together toward a common goal. As her influence spread, Nia found herself invited to speak at prestigious conferences, not just about her own journey but also about the importance of community healing and support in overcoming adversity. It was a cold winter morning when Nia received a letter that left her speechless. The letter was from a woman named Clara, who had attended one of Nia's early mentorship sessions. Clara had been a single mother struggling with addiction, lost and disconnected from the world around her. At the time, Nia's words had offered her a glimmer of hope. Now, years later, Clara was writing to tell Nia that she had turned her life around, gotten clean, and was now working as a counselor for others who faced the same struggles she once had. The letter was a turning point for Nia. She realized that her influence had extended far beyond her expectations. Not only had she helped people like Clara, but those individuals had gone on to help others, creating a ripple effect that reached far beyond her original community. In the following months, Nia decided to take another leap. She established a foundation dedicated to supporting people who were in the exact situations she and many of her mentees had once faced. The foundation's mission was clear: to provide mentorship, resources, and opportunities for those struggling with addiction, poverty, and isolation, just as Nia had once been. She knew that the work was far from over, and her passion only deepened as she began to expand her reach even further. Nia's relationship with Maya had also continued to blossom. What began as a mother-daughter bond rooted in survival had evolved into a partnership in which both women supported one another. Maya had become a leader in the foundation, helping to manage the growing number of programs and services. Nia's vision was now shared by the next generation, and it gave her a sense of fulfillment she hadn't known before. Maya was not only following in her mother's footsteps, but was helping to shape the future of the foundation in ways Nia had never dreamed. On a quiet evening, sitting by the fireplace with Maya, Nia reflected on the extraordinary path her life had taken. "I never imagined that I could do any of this," Nia said softly, her voice tinged with gratitude. "I never imagined that my pain could become something that would help so many." Maya smiled, her eyes filled with admiration. "You've done more than help people, Mom. You've inspired them. You've shown them that no matter how dark things get, there's always light at the end of the tunnel." Nia looked down at her hands, the hands that had once trembled with uncertainty, now steady with purpose. "I couldn't have done it alone. This movement has been built on the strength of so many people. It's not just my legacy, it's all of ours." As the years continued to pass, Nia's foundation expanded into other areas of support. They created job training programs, housing initiatives, and educational scholarships for individuals looking to make a fresh start. The ripple effect of her work had reached so many lives that the very fabric of their community had been transformed. What had once been a place of struggle had become a thriving example of resilience, unity, and hope. One summer day, Nia stood in front of a new building that was to be the headquarters of her foundation. It had been months in the making, and now it was complete. She stood with her family, the community leaders who had supported her vision, and those whose lives had been transformed by the programs she had started. It was a proud moment, but Nia knew the work wasn't finished. There was still so much more to be done. As the ribbon was cut and the building officially opened, Nia felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Her journey had been filled with obstacles, but each challenge had made her stronger, wiser, and more committed to the cause. She had gone from a place of brokenness to a place of power and influence, but she had never lost sight of the core belief that had guided her from the very beginning, that true change comes from the heart. She took a moment to look around at the people gathered in front of her. They were the true testament to her journey, the faces of hope, the faces of transformation. And as she gazed out at them, she realized that this was not just her legacy. This was a legacy built by a community that refused to give up on one another. It was a legacy of resilience, unity, and above all, love. Her work was not finished, but Nia knew that as long as there were people willing to stand with one another and fight for a better tomorrow, her legacy would continue. It was a legacy of hope that would be carried forward for generations to come.